Just imagine, the guy who starred in Breaking Bad stars in a movie about a humble guy who nobody respects who breaks bad. Except he doesn't exactly break bad because he was always bad to begin with. Right as the movie starts, we're introduced to the main character, Saul. What the frick is his name? Hutch, who's played by the actor that sounds like he's a descendant of Odin, and Kitty. We get introduced to the title in the same way that the Invincible series does theirs.
Who the fuck are you?
Me?
You might as well give up.
We watch a mind-numbing montage of him living a monotonous life. Every week, he does the same routine to a T. He also misses the garbage every single time, which makes me wonder, if you know it's going to be garbage day, there's only so many times you can miss the garbage before you decide to put it out the night before. Just me. Several minutes of the intro of this movie is just this montage of him doing the same thing over and over again. After the first 2 times, I think we get the picture. We get it. His wife in here is strange, but the whole pillow in the middle, what is the point of that? You know how uncomfortable that is? At that point, if they hate each other to that degree, why not sleep in a separate room or somebody sleep on the floor? Unless they're trying to prevent the other person's breath from breathing on them while they're asleep, because there's nothing to wake you up out of your sleep than hot breath cutting off your oxygen supply. Putting the pillow there to showcase the audience that they're not as close as they used to be is a bit of a stretch. Well, one particular night, everything changes. 2 people break into his house, they look scared and desperate, and when he has an opportunity to do something, after his son tackles one of them very bravely, he refuses to. I figured he didn't want to hit the girl holding the gun at his son, who was grappling with her mate on the floor, because, of course, if you hit her in the head, the trigger can go off and kill his son. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, he happens to see a tattoo on their arm, just like out of the Taken movie, so that he can identify them later on and know how to find them by tracking down that tattoo. Later on, the policeman and just about everyone shames him for not having done anything to save his family, despite the fact that everybody universally knows, maybe not in this universe, that you don't aggravate someone with a gun, especially if you don't have a firearm of your own in your house, which it clearly seems like he didn't. My whole thing is, I was waiting for him to tell them, yeah, numbnuts, I didn't hit the person in the head with a golf club because they had the gun trained on my son and that would have set it off. But instead, he tells them nothing. Even his son doesn't respect him, just like Breaking Bad. Wow. After that happens, it's back to the usual montage once again. I swear to God, a quarter of this movie is this montage of him doing the same thing every single day of every single week. What is the point? We get it. But I can forgive the second montage because I guess they're trying to imply that things go back to the way they usually are. So far in this family, the only person who loves her dad and respects him and believes that he can keep her safe is his daughter. Don't worry, that will change when she gets to her teenage years. I don't know why that happens. That never happened with me. I guess my daddy's one of the lucky ones. I loved him throughout my entire life.
Heard you had some excitement last night.
Yeah, it was just,
Man, I wish they'd have picked my place, Could have used the exercise.
Okay. What in the cringe fest? Do people actually speak like this? Apparently Discount Bear Grylls over here is supposed to be the token of masculinity, and we can see the androgynous son is just wishing in the depths of his soul that that was his dad. He takes off in his muscle car, and that's the last we ever see of that character. Next, we get to see Hutch at work, and we get to meet his brother-in-law, who looks like the real-life version of Bluto from Popeye. I couldn't help thinking that if the actor who played Tyrion Lannister were at full height, this is what he would look like. Then, if it didn't seem like he was overcompensating enough, he pulls a gun out and brandishes it at his brother-in-law. Every gun owner knows not to do this, and apparently this person should not have a firearm. And if you don't intend to shoot your target, your finger should not be on the freaking trigger. Everyone knows that. His wife's brother is freaking psychotic. He then gives the firearm to Hutch, and he wisely says that it's not a matter of wanting it, it's a matter of needing it. And he expects Hutch to keep his sister safe. Fair enough. All this time, it just baffles me how Hutch has no ounce of bother that people are just walking all over him. Then he gets into a room and speaks on an old radio on a channel that only his brother and he speak on. And when his brother starts asking him about what happened and to describe what happened that night, to our amazement and joy, we find out that this guy actually knows his guns. And that's when it deliciously starts to sink in that this guy doesn't have to break bad because he was already a freaking badass. He was, I don't know what he did before, but he was already John Wick in his past life. Then we find out that the gun had been empty. So those robbers never had any intent on killing anyone, and they couldn't even if they wanted to, because their gun was unloaded. It was just there to scare people. Still not okay though. You break into my house and try to steal my shit and put my family in danger? I'm sorry, I'm cracking your fucking skull. Most people don't have a trained eye to know whether or not you have bullets in your gun. Hutch then goes to the nursing home to visit his father, aka Doc Emmett, who is in the last stages of his life. His father notices that something is wrong. His father barely looked at him and was able to pick that up, and we can see that Hutch is unraveling at the seams. I think he wants revenge. Everything comes to a head when his daughter goes to a bowl in the kitchen and says her kitty cat bracelet is missing, and that the robbers must have taken it. And then he's like, okay, that's my cue to further the plot. He lets his dad know what he's gonna do, and his dad says, you better go do it. Almost like his dad was also John Wick in the past life. He tracks down the robbers by showing people the tattoo, and when one of the bad guys who really wants to kill him sees one of their other bad guys lock himself in a panic room when they see Hutch's tattoo, they come to the realization that if that guy's scared of this guy, maybe we should be too. And they tell him where those people are. He stealthily ends up in the house of the couple who have a child, a very sick baby at that.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfuckers!
And so because they have a child and they're desperate and they look like a sweet couple who love each other, we're supposed to feel sorry for them. When he sees that they have the baby in the room, he changes his mind and decides that it's not worth it. He doesn't want to scare these parents, and they must have been very desperate, so he lets them go. But he's upset because he wanted to bust a cap in someone's ass today. Apparently he hasn't done this for a long time, and you can never take the assassin out of the body. Wait, you can take the kill out of the assassin, but you can't take the assassin out of the kill. You know, let's keep moving on. As he's on a bus ride home, a Humvee rides up next to the bus, obviously full of drunk drivers, and crashes into a cement block. Yet everybody comes out unscathed. And guess where those guys are gonna come on next? The bus. Hutch is smiling because this is now his excuse to bust a cap in someone's skull. He pushes the bus driver lady off and tells her, dude, you might not want to be here for this. For some reason, the girl, seeing the other guy, a guy who is bigger than all the other guys that got on the bus, get off, she decides to stay on the bus. Growing up in Brooklyn, if I know I'm the only one on the bus and everybody else is getting off when these gang members are coming on, my ass is getting off too. So here's the thing. These five guys never touched this girl. Yeah, they're surrounding her, making her feel very uncomfortable, but they're mostly talking to themselves. They're probably waiting for the bus driver to come back on. They're drunk and acting stupid, but they're not doing anything to this girl. Hutch here closes the bus door and stands there staring them down like a challenge. They all look at him and they're like, what are you doing here still, old man? Not threateningly, just like, what's up, son? Why are you staring at us like that? Then he takes out his gun and brandishes it, exits all the bullets, and then says,
I'm gonna fuck you up.
So basically, he provoked them. He leaves one of them barely alive with a straw in his neck so he can breathe. That guy with a straw in his neck now has to breathe through a tube is the brother of a very powerful gang lord. Understandably, the gang lord's little brother, which is that guy that now has to breathe through a shoelace, is upset because this guy came after his little brother. So he sends his men after Hutch's house after finding out who he is. The mob boss's name is Julian, and after one of the girls who works for him finds out who Hutch is, she yeets herself out of there, gives him the pictures, and says, yeah, I'm out. For some reason, this guy is the Baba Yaga that apparently everybody else knows about except for the mob boss who has more connections than everybody else. When he looks at the files, he finds out who it is and he's like, oh boy, don't really want to do this, but on principle, he did come after my family. When the Russians come to his house, he locks his family in a panic room that was built into the house. His family never knew about it. His wife probably suspected that he did work similar to this, but she's never actually seen him do it. And after this day, you know his family will respect him again. Somewhat, maybe not. Shit gets real and he takes care of all of them. Now he's really mad, but I fail to understand why, because unlike John Wick, who had a warranted reason these people came to his house, provoked him, killed his dog, wasn't even a fully grown dog, it was a baby puppy, the last thing that his wife who died of cancer left him. I can understand on principle that you don't come to someone's house and do that, but this guy basically picked on these people and beat them up for no reason, just because he wanted to crack some skulls. But yet the whole movie is supposed to be painting him as though he's the good guy. He's not really John Wick, he's the guy that went to John Wick's house. But he's still the good guy. He's the main character, so we have to root for him. Because the badassery on screen is good to see. Just felt like that was kind of lost in translation there a little bit. Apparently, with the heavy artillery and loud noises of the machine guns and people fighting and crashing through glass, all of that noise is imperceptible to every single neighbor in the area. He's not in a remote location. He has neighbors to the side of him and across the street, yet nobody hears all of that. However, when he sets his house on fire and the light is flickering, everybody mysteriously wakes up and comes out of their house. Maybe it's one of those cases where they knew exactly when to mind their own fucking business. Hutch then burns all the money that Julian, the mob boss, is supposed to be watching for all these other mob bosses and offers him a way out. But Julian doesn't take it. Instead, knowing this guy has killed so many people, he decides that instead of taking this precious window to get his ass out of Dodge before these people find him and kill him for not taking care of their money properly, he uses what's left of his people that he apparently can't really pay right now. Don't know why they're still working for him. And after having this guy killed most of his people, he sends them after this guy. At some point, you know? But then again, he is a sociopath, so there's that. Of course, as foreshadowing would have it, his brother and his father come in to save the day, and they work together as father and sons to take down the enemy. I would admit there's like 3 things that I've never seen people do before in action movies that they did in this movie, and I can appreciate that. So we go back to the intro of the movie when he was sitting there before the policeman and they're wondering who he is. They get a call from their superiors, like how I said that with a Brooklyn Italian accent. And the implication is that they need to let him go. I can imagine that the gears in those cops' brains are turning because they're like, who the fuck is this guy? That these people just made that all go away. All the destruction, all the bodies, the body count just went away mysteriously. But he's not out of it yet because that comes with a price. And at the end of the movie, when his wife and he are house shopping, he gets a call. They reach him through the realtor's phone. Don't know why they didn't try him or the wife's since they each have cell phones, but you know, it had to be more dramatic to imply that the CIA can find you anywhere and they're always tracking you. We don't hear what they say, but he and his wife ask if there's a basement, implying that he's going to need to set fire to his house again, using the basement as a large incinerator to get rid of bodies in his house. That means they need him to do a job, because that get out of jail free card is not free. This movie was all sorts of fun. It was freaking weird. It was John Wick meets Breaking Bad, where the good guy was kind of the bad guy, but then still is seen as the good guy because he's the main character. My only thing is I wish I could have seen his son's face, like to process all of that since he never respected his dad, and then to see and find out that his dad is a fucking badass. And the reason why his dad let himself get pushed around like that is because he knew he had the power to fuck up the people who were doing it. It's kind of like those scenarios when you can let something slide because you know that if you were to bust a cap in that person, they would end up in the hospital. It makes it so much easier to swallow it because you know in your mind that you're more powerful than that person. It's like walking on the streets in the dark and feeling total freedom, even though you're a 5'3" little female, but you're good because you got your concealed carry SP-101 double action revolver in your pocket. Should you go watch this movie? Definitely. It's a great time. If you liked John Wick, you'll like this. It's just some stupid fun and action that's obviously clearly unbelievable, but that is what these action movies are. And we need more of this. And Saul, Odenkirk, does a really good job with this as well. Didn't think I would take him seriously as this kind of character, since I've only seen him as Saul in Breaking Bad, so it's refreshing to know that he can play a badass character. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.